Welcome to another Wargame review with theplayersaid.com. I'm Grant.
And I'm Alexander.
Well, tonight we played a new game for us. Probably the game that has the longest title in the history of board gaming. It is the Supply Lines of the American Revolution. The tagline or the subtitle is the Northern Theater, 1775 to 1777. Woo, got that out. It was a mouthful. So this game is from Hollandspiele, designed by Tom Russell. A very interesting, and I would use the word eclectic, style war game. This is a war game, but it's a little different style of a war game.
Yeah, this feels very different to a lot of war games that we played.
Right.
But there's also some familiarity
Yes.
with the subject matter, at least.
Yeah, so it's the American Revolution, obviously. It is a two-player game. I played the side of the Patriots. Alexander played the side of the British. Imagine that. Don't know why. He's fiercely loyal.
I'm a sucker for losing, that's what it is.
So this game, what it is a game about moving and positioning your pieces in order to create extensive supply lines to, in essence, freely move supplies to and from around so that you can move your armies. Armies are moved with green cubes or food, and then attack with those armies, which requires a cube to move for the Patriots, right?
Yeah, it's green cubes to move, and then to do attacks, you got to spend more green cubes to food, but you also have to have then the wooden, just
the war
ones,
supply.
The war supplies, having all the ammo,
gunpowder, shells, those kind of things, cannon support, etc. So it is about that. It is area movement. So you're trying to move around a map of the colonial era. Basically, it stretches, and it's the Northern Theater, just like it says. So on the south, you have Baltimore as the southernmost city, and on the north, you have Quebec and Montreal, as well as Nova Scotia as a kind of a war-producing source for the British. So you're trying to move around these spots. There are city spaces, there are fort spaces, there are open spaces, and you're trying to move, once again, to create those lines so that you can move spaces, and then, in essence, you're trying to attack at key points to disrupt or threaten that supply line. Really interesting game. I felt like it was a lot like, it's not anything like chess, but I feel like it's a chess-like game, meaning I would move and then Alexander would counter move. I would counter move that counter move, and I was trying to get into a position to do some damage and eliminate a piece. So it really felt to me very thinky. I think you had to think a couple of moves ahead. You had to think also, you had to remember there are winter phases. There are two of those in the game. Devastating for the Patriots, as always. Winter quarters, the armies go home. You kind of lost your supply lines, and then you had to rebuild them. So you always had to kind of think, how can I save the most troops? How can I save my supplies? How can I prepare for the next campaigning season? So enough about that part of the game. I guess what I would say is, Alexander, what did you think about this game?
It's for me, this was a very different style of game from how you had to approach it, because this game is called Supply Lines of the American Revolution, and that's what it's about. It's about the supply lines. So, we've played a lot of other different American Revolution games, like Washington's War, Liberty or Death, things like that. And
Saratoga.
You can just pick up your armies and you move them around, and that costs you, but you move and fight, move and fight, move and fight. That's not how this game works at all. You'd never get anywhere because of the cost it is to move your units. So what you do is you create chains of units along spaces, and then you just funnel your supplies up, which doesn't, it's free to move your supplies up to the front lines, and the front lines do attacks, big pushes, and then, extend your lines. You just keep funneling, and so you're trying to create this, like, war machine almost, where you just create these, you take all the resources from the farms and the cities, and you funnel them out, to the front lines where you do your combats.
I feel like that you're trying to kind of go to the tip of the spear.
Yes.
You're trying to create some momentum behind that spear so it drives home.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to the tip of the spear, trying to pick, and I was trying to pick two spots where I could kind of try to hurt you.
Yeah.
And you were trying to hurt me in those two spots as well.
Or at least hunker down.
Right, and prepare.
Some defensive
and,
bonuses.
yes, for forts. But it wasn't like we were having combat all over the board.
No.
We kind of only had combat in Fort Ticonderoga. We had several combats there. Also in Falmouth, we had a couple of combats, and Boston. And that was really it.
Yeah, and partly that's the way that I positioned myself foolishly.
Right.
Which is something that we'll get to here in a bit.
Yeah, we will.
I lost the game on the first turn. And that was because I didn't know what I was doing, because we
Well,
were playing the game.
And we went over that, right? We went over it when we were going over the rules, because at the very end of the rule book, it says this game can be lost with one move. And it will make it such that you can never recover and never make it so that you can do anything.
And that's what I did.
I think it played out.
And I inadvertently did that just from not... So now having played the full game, I'm like,
totally
oh,
different.
well, I know I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't do this, or I would definitely do this thing. And those opening moves really kind of dictated how I had to play the rest of the game, which became very static, which was not...
Right.
That's not good.
And we'll talk about where he made that mistake and how really why it caused the...
Yeah.
Because if you look at the board, and we'll show you the board, it is all Patriot.
Yeah.
South of Ticonderoga and south of Falmouth, it's all Patriot because you never really were able to build up the
I couldn't get
wave to get going down there.
Yeah, basically. But that was a good thing. You know,
right.
This is like, well, I want to play it again.
I really want to,
than I did, because now I know I'm like, okay, this is. I had to really break how I think about a war game.
Right.
Because this is, to me, a logistics game with war elements to it.
Absolutely.
I break up your logistics by doing war gaming type stuff. Spending some resources, chucking some dice, having an army with some values, resolving combat in a very war game way, but really it's just to smash up your logistics and your supply lines. That's really what it is.
Yeah, you're looking for that opportunity to kind of get in there and sever a good supply line.
Yeah.
So that you can't really move pieces around or move supplies around to really create that, once again, tip of the spear attack.
And I like that in a very thematic way, because you could cut someone's supply line, that army would be cut off, and it would be just like a regular siege.
Right.
Attack, they'd expend all their resources defending, and they'd have nothing left, and you could crush them.
And that kind of happened early on in Boston.
Very much so.
And this is one of the mistakes that was made by Alexander, I think, and we both kind of went, we kind of realized. But I was able to take what is called, I think these are called points.
Yeah.
I was able to take a point and, in essence, take away his ability to create supply in that city. So what it ended up doing, I think, was leaving only, one green cube that you could move away with or something. No, you did port action. But anyway, you had nothing. You couldn't have even rolled defensive dice because he had no military or war assets. So that was kind of a lucky move for me at the beginning, and something we didn't necessarily understand. You would have moved away. You would have just moved away.
But by that point, you'd filled up all the other port cities, so I was like...
It was where you're going to go.
Yeah.
So it just worked out that way.
Very interesting things there.
But there are some really fascinating back and forth elements of this, because you're trying to create... What you're trying to do is create these dots around the board that create supply. Supply is only created in cities. It's only created in cities in which you have a friendly unit there. So I was trying to spread around. I think after the first round, I have to go back and look at my pictures. I think I had 7 cities that were controlled. So I had 3 times 21 supplies that were created that round. 2 food and 1 war. I think that's what it says it produces, right?
Yeah, 2 food and war.
And that really helped me be able to really put a push on you.
Yeah.
And as the Patriot, you're trying to win by 2 ways. Holding out and stopping the crown player from getting any 3 of the victory cities, which are Philadelphia, New York, and Albany. If you ever control all 3 of those, you win the game.
Yeah.
Auto win the game. You're also trying to control these cities, because that's one of your victory conditions.
The regular cities.
3 cities.
You can win that way.
But I'm just trying to hold out and keep you out of those cities. or I'm trying to win by pushing for the French to enter the war by forcing the Treaty of Alliance. The Treaty of Alliance is forced by winning a battle, making a leader surrender, and the ultimate devastating: win a battle, kill the leader, and defeat a crown army, which gives you like 3 steps.
Having a crown army
surrender
because you eliminated them all.
Yeah.
It was devastating. That's how you won the game.
Yeah.
Finally,
I took like
a bunch
3
of points
steps
that way.
and hit that point. So really, once again, for the Patriot, I think this is set up so that the Patriots have a little bit easier route about it, because once again, they're not having to be the aggressor. But of course, how did I play it?
But I think you would have to, if you had an English or a crown player, go out and take a few cities, you'd be much more hard pressed to get reinforcements out, because they'd come out in cities, and so they wouldn't generate.
Yeah, you can't.
There's a lot of different things.
You have to be on the offensive, I think, in some respects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what did you really like about the game?
I liked how different it was. I don't know if I've ever played a game that was quite like this. And managing the 2 different types of resources was fascinating. You using the food to move, and then having enough war cubes to do something at the end of it was hard. And then there's limits to how much you can carry, and there's lots of different things going on. But how you think about this game was the most rewarding thing, because it just... That's what I want from a war game, is for it to challenge me.
Yeah, strategically and tactically.
Yeah, a very different style of game that I've ever played, and that was awesome. It just felt good to play something that was so different.
I liked it because, and we talked about this, I believe the mechanics are in general very, very simple.
Yeah, they're not.
It is pretty clear. You move, you do this, you connect a supply line, you can move supplies, you attack, you defend, you can retreat in battle. And that may have been something you should have done, is retreated that. Maybe not accept the battle. Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that, but I think you thought you could hold out.
Well, I was trying to chuck dice and get lucky.
Right. But I liked that the mechanics are very simple, but I would, and this is an overused statement in board game reviewing, I think they're very elegant. I think they work well together. I think they make complete and utter thematic sense, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I really envision myself moving these bits around the board. In fact, I dare say, I was here. You know what I'm going for here. I was Henry Knox in the Revolutionary War. He doesn't get it. Patton, Patton said he was here on one of those great battlefields. So anyway, forget it. Henry Knox was the Secretary of War and was in charge of funding the Revolution, basically. So he was portly. I'm portly.
Okay.
He led that charge. I led that charge. So sorry.
They don't teach if
you,
in school.
Yeah, he's not American. So if you get that reference, give me a like. I think it's pretty cool. But I really like that. The thematic element I thought was very, very cool.
It's a 10-page rule book.
Yeah,
that's nice. We just
we read it. Took about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to read it.
Not complex.
We referred to it,
but probably complex to master.
And that was the second part of my comment.
Yeah.
I think to play this game well, we're going to have to play it 2 or 3 times to really get the different nuances. One thing we didn't use, and I kept waiting for you to use a dig-in, but you didn't.
Because you have to spend food and
weapon. You have to do 1 and 1, don't you? Yeah.
I just never had enough.
I kept waiting for you to do a dig-in in Ticonderoga.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to. That's why I moved those 6 cubes up there. But, so that's something I think and also, I was surprised you didn't burn Boston. What's that called?
Doing the destruction.
Ravage, or destroy.
Well, I realized
I was surprised that you...
I should have destroyed it.
I kept waiting, please don't destroy it. But, because I thought, I think he's going to destroy that one. Because they almost set it up, almost forcing that to happen in the first
I destroy
round.
it and leave.
Yeah, you destroy it and leave.
And that's probably what I should have done.
Right. It doesn't count as a victory city then.
Right.
And it doesn't produce resources, but it doesn't help
but I wouldn't
me
have
either.
been in there.
Right. So those are nuances that I think, had we played more, I think dig in and destroy, I think would have come into the game. So that's what I really liked about this. You're not going to play this one time and, I got it. It's going to take 2, maybe 3 plays, and then frankly, you can switch sides and
play
another 2 or 3.
playing with the same person is going to keep you almost at that same level.
Right.
If you were an advanced player for this and you played something that was new, it's probably not very fun.
No, it would be
You'd probably walk
devastating.
someone on this.
That's the joke on you. I've played this 17 times
Yeah.
with my daughter Jane. So what was something you maybe didn't like or would like to see done differently? And we may be nitpicking. Sometimes I feel like we're just nitpicking.
If I had to nitpick, it would be a mounted map.
But I kind of like this because it's thematic.
Yeah,
I feel like this is a scroll
fine.
you would roll up and put in your satchel as you're surveying the battlefield.
But that's it.
You know?
It's nitpicking.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything I didn't like.
Okay.
Because it doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Like,
Right.
It's got
It's
a
not
steep learning
pretentious.
curve. No, like
It
tells
does.
you it's like you can mess this up on turn one, and that's
Which
what I did.
is what happened.
But it tells you that, and you have to try and be smart about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything I didn't like about it. It's a small box.
Yep.
It's a very reasonably priced game.
Yep.
And you get a great
Quality
game in it.
components. These are great counters. They're thick. They're the laser die cut, really high quality. Love the little pictures, the silhouette of the soldiers on them. My one point, couple of times I felt like the rules were a little circular. When I read it, I had to go back in my mind and read it, and then we read it again. But once again, it was a new rule book.
Yeah.
But I would like to see a sequence of player aid. I think that was the one complaint, and that's something I always complain about when a game doesn't have it. I like a good, very succinct player aid, so I don't have to keep flipping back to the rule book. Just write me up a little card, 8.5 by 11, or even 3 by 5 postcard size. Not 8.5 by 11. That's an entire sheet.
Print it in the
yeah,
little
just print it.
dead
There's
space
space.
here
There's
on one
space.
thing.
I just think that helps those games become more playable, and they help them be more enjoyable because you can play them more quickly. Now, having said that, after playing one time, we've got the sequence of play down.
Yeah.
It's more the nuances of, what happens during the winter quarters round? Okay.
How many guys leave?
How many guys I lost, and how many, those are the things that I think, that's probably the only element I didn't like about it. I think with the initial setup, a lot of games do this, and this is something I complain about. I felt like it set it up such that right here we were automatically going to have a conflict, which it's historically accurate.
Yeah.
I understand that. But then they put you up here where you had to waste how many rounds kind of getting into the fight. And I just felt like just move him up 2 or 3 more spaces, sacrifice some of that historical accuracy. But once again, it allowed me as the Patriot player to build up.
Yeah, and
So I
that's,
needed
like
that
you
time.
said, it's the history there. So it was try to hang on here, bring these guys down,
Right.
throw in some reinforcements. They take time to come over and come over from Nova Scotia and then rebase. That's it.
Yeah, and I think when you say it like that, I think that feels more thematic, and I now don't necessarily have that concern. But I tell you what, I enjoyed it. A lot of times we measure how good a game is by whether or not we want to play it immediately. We would want to play this immediately, I think.
Yeah,
it's
I'd have a great time playing it again.
Yeah, quick to set up. We would be off and running. So now we're going to take a moment and just kind of look at the board. Alexander's going to talk about those 2 elements that he probably made early mistakes on, and we'll show you a couple of the quick mechanics.
So here's a look at the board, and this is the final outcome. And as you can see, commiserations to the Crown player. It didn't go very well. So you've got all this blue, this lovely Patriot player here, and there's just a couple of red spots where I had units at the end of the game. The map itself, Grant did an unboxing, but the map is very clean. It's very clear. There's a game record track, there's a pass track, and there's a support track, and everything else is just point-to-point map movement. And the board is generally divided up into these kind of like a dark pink-red, which are cities. There's yellow, which are forts. And then there's these little green spots here, which are just called points. They're just open terrain in between everything. And basically the game involves moving your units around. But again, unlike traditional war games where you'll pick up an army and move it, and then move again and move again, what you're doing is you're dropping off units to create these long supply chains. Because what happens is, these supply cubes, which come in green and just regular wood, those are the crux of the game. What you'll do is the green are food, and these tan ones are the war supply, so it's ammunition and all that. Those generate automatically in the cities that you occupy during the supply phase. So we'll just say here, Philadelphia is occupied by 2 patriots. At the beginning of the supply phase, it generates 2 food and 1 war. And that's the rule for every city that has occupation. So whichever side is occupying it, they'll have access to these. And as you can see, over time, those will accrue if you don't use them. So you can end up with big stockpiles at times. So what the point of the supply lines is, so up here we've got some confrontation going on, but they'll do an attack, they'll spend these war cubes, so we'll spend these, we'll spend 2, and you have to spend 2 war cubes to roll 1 dice in attack against a yellow 4. So you roll the dice, boom, oh, that was a successful attack, fantastic. We kill a unit. Well, now, he's only got 1 of these war cubes left. Remember, it costs 2 to get 1 war dice, so he can't do any more attacking. So how do you get more attacking? You simply move supplies up your supply lines. And that's where the game really shines. So you try and create these long chains from your cities. Great. So this guy here, we can move this supply all the way up my chain. Just doesn't cost me anything. I do that at the beginning of my impulse. While I've got these supplies over here, we can move those up. They go along this supply line, boom, ready for more attacks on my next impulse. And that's really a lot of how the game is going to function. Creating these chains to get your supplies to the front lines to make really good attacks.
And along that same lines, if you'll notice these 2 cities, Stonington and New York, they obviously had a lot of supplies built up in them, but you'll notice they have no direct connection to this supply line. So because of that, I wasn't able to move those supplies up. So what I was trying to do, and I ended up actually abandoning it because I saw an opportunity to attack you at Ticonderoga, I was going to try to, simply, I'm out of pieces, but simply try to move a dude in there so that this supply line connected, and then I could have moved, once again, all these pieces up to the front to try and help out. And then I would be leaving my backside unprotected, but I felt like you were focused up here, I was focused up there, and that was fairly safe. But also here, I was trying to potentially connect these as well by moving units in so that I could move those units around and move those supplies around. So that, like you said, is the crux of the game. And you'll look at that and you'll go, boy, that's a lot of resources and a lot of guys strung out. Yes, it is, but that's the whole point. You're connecting major supply producing areas so that you can get to that point.
Yeah, it's called Supply Lines of the
lines.
American Revolution. And you have to remember that, and the game is so different from any other game because that's what the focus of the game is. And it might seem kind of arbitrary, just moving guys and dropping them off, making a chain. That must be so easy. Mm-hmm. It is extremely difficult.
It requires a lot of pre-planning and pre-thought because you can't split an army unless you have a leader. So if you have 2 guys here, you can't simply move a guy down here and create a line. You have to move both of them.
Yeah.
So you have to have a leader down there to create those lines, and then you can move your leader up to attack. So that was one of the you have to be very deliberate about that.
And so the example that you were giving here, right?
Yeah.
You got a guys in New York. Well, how do you make this chain? You've got a couple of options. You can either move this guy along, spend 1 here. Well, now your supply line's broken here, so what are you going to do? So you end up having to move all these supplies up. This guy moves supply up the line. That means he can move here, he can move here, and this guy's going to move up here. But now I don't have Baltimore anymore, so what am I going to do there? So there's a ton of this stuff.
There. Yeah.
Because if you move all that back, well, these guys, we could just move them up here. Well, great. Now I don't have a supply line here.
Yeah.
This guy can take with him 4+1. So he can actually carry all of these with him, but now I don't have New York.
Yep, you're not going to create supplies there next time.
And so what you're doing is you're just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
If you chose to do that, you're gambling on the reinforcement phase, and there's these Patriot reinforcement chits, and you just, during the reinforcement phase, you pick out a number that's determined by this Patriot support track. So early in the game, you're just drawing 3. Boom. So we got Cambridge, Boston, and I can't read upside down, Stonington. So if I had pulled New York, fantastic. I would have gotten 2 guys there. That would be ideal. But really, you can't plan where your reinforcements are going to come, so you can't really bank on that very well. And if you start pulling cities where there are crown control, nothing happens.
Yeah, you don't
so,
get
so they're
units.
just wasted.
Yeah.
And then if,
They can be removed from the box if, I can't remember the condition under which they'll be removed.
during a winter phase, because what
Yes.
you'll do is you'll draw these and you set them aside. And then the next impulse, you draw them and set them aside, or the next turn. And so at the end of the turn, you'll have like a huge stack of these. And then whichever of these cities are occupied by crown units will permanently be removed from the game. So you'll never get reinforcements in that city again.
And that could be devastating.
Yeah, if the crown got control of a bunch of cities early, and then there was that first winter phase, and it happened to be those cities, things could turn for you very badly.
Yeah.
So there's just a ton to think about in this game, because this is a 2-hour game.
Mm-hmm.
But you could spend 4 hours playing this
And
if you really sat down there and were like trying to eke out every single move. You could make this as long as you want.
And typically we play slowly because we like to talk and think about each move. I think if we'd have played all 12 rounds, this would have been a 2.5, almost 3-hour game for us.
But once you pick it up, it's going to
2
move very
hours.
quickly because the combat is fairly simple. You spend these cubes. If you're attacking a city or a fort, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. If you're fighting in this green little open ground, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I spend that. The Patriot player rolls a d6. On a 1 or 2, he hits. For the Crown player, on a 1, 2, or 3, he hits because the guys are better trained. And that's it. You do hits, you take losses, and then really the victor is determined by comparing the stacks that are left over. So this guy, he had two guys left. This guy here only had 1. It doesn't matter how many guys were killed. This guy's got more dudes, so this guy wins. Patriot support goes up 1. That's great. And then these guys who lost the battle make a morale check. And the morale check, you just have to roll equal to or over the difference in the stacks. If you succeed, the defender lost the battle, but they hold their ground, and the attacker has to go back home. So there's really interesting stuff there. You win the battle, but it doesn't feel like you did at times.
I don't think you actually retreated but one time. We had about 5 battles.
Yeah.
I think you retreated once, and I think I retreated. No, I didn't retreat because I made my morale.
Yeah, I don't know if we have... But if you fail that morale check, then you're going to retreat, and this guy's going to take the space.
Yeah.
And that's where you'd start getting into... If you can cut in here and cut supply lines, things are going to get very, very nasty very quickly. But so the combat resolution, very, very simple, but still quite wargamey to me. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a logistics game. It is a war game.
Yeah, it
on
has
top of
combat.
that. Yeah.
And there's also a lot of tactical movement that you're trying to do. The sea box is used but only by the British to move around. You can do bombardment of cities. Nova Scotia is a supply source. You can move supplies from that location.
Yeah.
Down here, we didn't really talk much about the reinforcement track, but the Crown can decide to ask for more troops. You're going to put those troops in Nova Scotia, but what's going to happen is you're going to be required to then win more victory cities. So it's kind of like the Crown is saying to you, hey, you're asking for more resources. I expect this victory to be big. It's no longer going to be just 3 cities. It's now going to be 4. So that was a decision Alexander had to make, whether to escalate, and he did one time. I don't know if you were probably going to.
I was
going to
do one soon if I could make, but I was in an untenable position.
So that there's a lot of neat elements we didn't really talk about or cover, but this game has a lot. It's a good game, very solid.
Yeah, and there's some planning stuff. Creating these supply lines is very key. So early on, I was trying to bring these guys down and create a line to put pressure up here, and I goofed with the number of guys. I left an extra guy here, which meant it was much slower for me to make this progress down because I couldn't stretch my line thin enough. So that was one mistake I made because it was so slow moving down and very inefficient moving my supplies around to move my units. And then early on you start with guys in Boston, and I split my stack and I moved them poorly. and I couldn't then move them out to attack very well, and so I just got cut off here, and then these guys ended up in a fort with no supplies, and they couldn't generate any supplies, so they couldn't get out, so they literally couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because to do the English transport into the sea box, it has to be from the port cities, not from a fort. So they were just
So you moved into this port,
Yeah.
and then I think you moved into here and you ran out of supply.
Because there were supplies in there, so I went to go pick them up and then
Yeah.
attack out, and then I didn't drive you out, so I was like, I had to go back here, and I was like, oh no.
That was an interesting part of the game.
So there's ways to shoot yourself in the foot in this game. You got to think smart about it, and you got to think everything out. But ultimately, just play the game, and it's very, very fun. And if you mess it up, concede, start again.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about this game. And this game rewards, playing it multiple times. Not going to be the same game. It's not going to be a boring replay. I just don't feel that way. So that's a look kind of at the board and some of the different bits and pieces here. And we'll just go wrap up with some final thoughts.
So we're back for some final thoughts. Alexander, what's your final thoughts on the game?
I had fun playing this game. It's as simple as that. I had fun playing this game, and I would recommend this to anyone who's played war games. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend this to like entry level guys.
Yeah,
because there's some
a lot of nuances.
There's some nuances to how you have to be successful at this game.
Right.
You can play this game
and just play
and be bad at it. It's really
right.
easy to be bad at this game
and learn in that way, right?
Yeah.
You would learn immediately. Oh, I don't put my hand in that lion's mouth; it's going to bite me. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but I think this is a really, really great game. I had a good time playing this. I would definitely recommend. First ever pink war game.
Yeah, it is pinkish, salmonish, kind of an interesting color choice. I like it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's kind of pinkish.
I had fun with this.
Yes, I had fun as well. Really enjoyed the game. We played for about an hour and 40 minutes. We got about halfway through the total amount of turns. I think there's a total of 12 turns, correct? We got through almost 6 before I had an auto victory, but it's because Alexander made a mistake early on. So I think this game, once you know how to play it, I think it's going to be a 2-hour game.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to set up. I think it's also easy to get into. The rules aren't overly complex, but it is difficult to master. And I don't think you're going to sit down, play this game, and understand it fully the first time. It's going to take a couple of plays. One other comment I would have about this game in general and the company that publishes it, Hollandspiele is fantastic. They are a new company. I believe now they are in their second year. They've actually produced, I believe it's around 12 games in the last year. You can see the number on the spine of the box. This is number 10. They have all types of games. They have a couple Eurocentric games. They have one game called Agricola that is a solo game. They have several war games that are hardcore war games. Schelt Campaign by Brian Train. They have Operation Unthinkable, which is Churchill's plan to invade Russia immediately following the end of World War II. I did an interview with Ty Bamba on that one. It's on the website. Really, to be honest, Tom and Mary Russell have done a fantastic job, and I'm not saying this just to say it, but I've been very impressed with their stuff. We also have the Schelt Campaign to play. I am going to start looking at other games from their collection because they're good. They're good. They're high quality, well made, well designed, and they're fun little generally quick war games. So I think if you like this period, I think if you like a war game that is different, this is not Hex Encounter. You're not going to line up your forces along a mile front and fight it out. But this has a lot of strategic and tactical thought that is required to have fun and do it right. So I think it's a great game. I'd recommend this highly.
Yeah. And the most important part, would you buy the follow-up to this, the Southern Theater?
There's no question.
That's how I would judge this game.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it immensely. They're going to come out with another one eventually, and we'll definitely be playing that.
Yeah, they just announced it, I think, this month.
And if there's a way to play them both together...
That would be fantastic. And that would be really cool.
That would be long.
Yeah. But I think they announced it this month. I think they're talking end of first quarter maybe of 2018. But Yeah, definitely. And we always judge a game by whether we want to play it again immediately. And I think both of us would line this thing up and play for another hour and a half. So great job. Look for this game. We'll do a review sometime over the next month or so. I'd like to play it at least once or twice more, get a better feel for it. But we'll be posting this video and sharing our thoughts with it. So thanks for another War Game review with theplayersaid.com.